When a drone takes off over the vast wilderness of Yellowstone National Park, you expect to see breathtaking beauty, waves of golden grass, and perhaps the dark, powerful shapes of bison moving across the land. But what photographer Tom Archer captured on one clear morning was not the normal, chaotic rhythm of nature. His drone recorded something that defied all explanation, a scene so strange and so unsettling it would trigger an urgent scientific investigation. Hundreds of massive bison, the ancient kings of this landscape, were not moving. They stood completely frozen, arranged in a perfect, silent circle, all staring at a single point in the center as if held captive by an invisible force. What his drone captured that day was a chilling mystery, a warning from the natural world that would leave experts baffled and deeply concerned. But before we start our story, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any of our new, incredible stories. To understand the profound strangeness of this event, you must first understand the two ancient forces at its heart: the land of Yellowstone and the American bison. Yellowstone is not just a park. It is one of the last, largest, and nearly intact temperate zone ecosystems on Earth. It is a world of incredible geothermal power, sitting atop a massive supervolcano that breathes through a landscape of geysers, hot springs, and bubbling mud pots. It is a place of raw, untamed nature, a sanctuary for some of America's most iconic wildlife. And no animal is more iconic to this landscape than the American bison. These are not ordinary cattle. They are magnificent, powerful beasts, a direct link to a prehistoric past. A large bull can stand 6 feet tall and weigh over 2,000 pounds. For thousands of years, tens of millions of these animals roamed the North American continent in colossal herds that were described by early explorers as a dark river of life stretching to the horizon. But in the 19th century, they were driven to the absolute brink of extinction in one of the greatest wildlife slaughters in human history. By the late 1880s, fewer than 1,000 bison were left in the entire world. A tiny remnant herd of just a few dozen animals found refuge in the remote, protected valleys of Yellowstone. From that tiny, fragile population, every wild, free-roaming bison in Yellowstone today is descended. They are the only herd in the United States to have lived continuously in the same area since prehistoric times. They are a symbol of incredible resilience, a species that has looked into the abyss of extinction and survived. They are deeply attuned to the rhythms of this land, and their behavior is a barometer for the health of the entire ecosystem. And on this day, the barometer was indicating that something was terribly wrong. Our story's protagonist is Tom Archer, a wildlife photographer who had made the wilderness his home. He had woken up early that morning in his small, rustic cabin on the edge of the park. His routine, the same as it had been for the past year. Since losing his wife, the quiet, predictable beauty of nature had been his only solace. The wild was the one place where the silence didn't feel empty. Photography was his way of connecting, of finding fleeting moments of life and beauty that reminded him that the world continued, even if his own had been shattered. He was a patient and respectful observer of nature, a man who understood the unspoken rules of the wild. As the first light of dawn spilled over the mountains, Tom powered on his drone and sent it soaring into the crisp morning sky. The screen of his controller lit up, revealing the vast, golden expanse of a Yellowstone valley beneath him. In the distance, he saw what he was looking for: a dark patch against the grass, a herd of bison. He skillfully piloted the drone closer, keeping a respectful altitude so as not to disturb them. But as the image on his screen became clearer, his breath caught in his throat. This was no ordinary herd. They were not grazing. They were not moving. They were standing perfectly still, packed shoulder to shoulder in a massive, perfect circle. Every single one of them, from the largest bulls to the small, reddish calves, was facing inward, their massive heads lowered, their bodies completely motionless. It was deeply, profoundly unnatural. Tom had spent thousands of hours in the wild. He knew that herds were chaotic, fluid things, always moving, always alert. Their movements are a constant, unspoken dance of survival. But this was different. This was a silent, living statue. He zoomed in with the drone's powerful camera. The bison were packed so tightly together that he couldn't see what was at the center of the circle. A strange, uneasy feeling settled in his gut. This was not the rhythm of nature he knew. This was something else, something that felt ancient and wrong. his photographer's instinct was instantly overridden by a powerful sense of alarm. He saved the footage and, without a moment's hesitation, he grabbed his phone and scrolled to a name he hadn't called in a very long time. Lisa Monroe, the head park ranger of Yellowstone. Lisa was in her station, trying to make sense of a series of strange geological readings that her young, enthusiastic colleague, Mark, had been insisting were important for days. The park's seismographs had been picking up a series of low-level, unusual ground tremors. Lisa, a seasoned veteran of the Park Service, knew that Yellowstone was a geologically active place and had initially dismissed them as normal. But Mark was persistent, pointing out that the energy signature of these tremors didn't match any known pattern. When her phone buzzed and she saw Tom Archer's name, a strange knot tightened in her stomach. His voice on the phone was urgent, and as he described the scene with the bison, the hair on the back of her neck stood up. She had heard of strange animal behavior before, but nothing like this. "Send me the footage," she said, her voice now sharp and serious. The moment the drone video loaded on her computer screen, she understood. The sight of the hundreds of bison, frozen in their perfect, silent circle, was one of the most unsettling things she had ever seen. Her mind immediately flashed to Mark's warnings about the strange tremors. Could they be connected? She called Tom back, her voice now firm. "Stay where you are, keep the drone in the air, but do not get any closer. I'm on my way." She grabbed her gear and a rookie ranger named Philip. As they sped in their truck towards Tom's location, she radioed Mark and told him to re-examine all the seismic data from the last 24 hours and to cross-reference it with any geothermal or magnetic field anomalies in that specific valley. The pieces of a terrifying and unknown puzzle were beginning to come together. When Ranger Lisa Monroe and the rookie, Philip, arrived at the ridge overlooking the valley, Tom was waiting for them, his drone still hovering silently in the sky, a single electronic eye watching over the bizarre scene. Lisa got out of the truck, and as her own eyes fell upon the herd below, she felt a professional calm mix with a deep, instinctual unease. Tom had been right. The sight of hundreds of one-ton animals, which should have been a picture of constant, powerful motion, standing perfectly still was profoundly wrong. The silence of the valley was the most unsettling part. There was no grazing, no grunting, no movement. It was a silent, living tableau. And then her trained eyes caught it. In the exact geometric center of the perfect circle of bison, there was something else, a faint, ethereal glow, a shimmering light that seemed to pulse with an unnatural rhythm. Whatever was holding the bison captive, its source was there, at the heart of the circle. Before she could act, a new problem arrived. A group of tourists, having seen the strange gathering from a distance, began to make their way towards the ridge, their cameras out, their voices loud with excitement. Lisa knew the immense danger. A panicked herd of this size could create a deadly stampede in seconds. She turned to the rookie, Philip. "This is your chance to prove yourself," she said, her voice firm. "Keep them safe. Keep them back. Use any reason you have to, but do not let them get any closer to that valley." Philip, his own face pale but his expression determined, nodded and jogged off to intercept the tourists. Minutes later, the scientist, Dr. Lucas Bennett, arrived. Dr. Bennett, a renowned geologist, wasted no time. He listened to Mark's report on the seismic anomalies and then turned his sharp, analytical gaze towards the valley and the strange glow at its center. His expression darkened. "It's a meteorite," he explained, "but a very, very rare type. What we're seeing is not heat. It is a powerful, localized electromagnetic field." He then explained the incredible science behind the bizarre scene. "Many animals," he said, "from migrating birds to sea turtles, possess a biological sense called magnetoreception. It's an internal biological compass that allows them to sense the Earth's natural magnetic fields, which they use for navigation and migration. Bison," he explained, are also believed to have this sense. The meteorite that had crashed into the park 2 nights before was not just a rock. It was a highly unusual iron-nickel meteorite, rich in rare ferromagnetic and superconductive elements. The impact had activated these materials, turning the meteorite into a powerful, natural magnet, which was now emitting a strong, distorted electromagnetic field. The bison, with their sensitive internal compasses, had been drawn to it, but as they got closer, the field became so powerful that it completely overwhelmed their navigational senses. Their instincts, confused by the nonsensical magnetic information, had given them a single primal command: do not move. They were trapped not by a physical fence, but by a distortion in the very fabric of the natural world they relied on. The danger was now clear and twofold. If the animals remained trapped for too long, they would eventually collapse from exhaustion and starvation. But the more immediate threat was a stampede. If anything startled them while their internal navigation was so completely scrambled, they would panic and bolt in random directions, a chaotic, unstoppable wave of 2,000-pound bodies that would be a deadly disaster for any living thing in their path. The team had to act, and they had to act fast. Dr. Bennett and Mark set up their equipment. They had brought a portable field generator designed to disrupt electromagnetic interference. Their plan was to create a counteracting pulse, a wave of energy that would neutralize the meteorite's effect and reboot the bison's internal compasses. While they prepared the scientific equipment, Lisa and Philip began the incredibly delicate task of gently coaxing the herd out of its trance. They positioned themselves at a safe distance and began making low, rhythmic sounds, not loud enough to cause panic, but persistent enough to slowly penetrate the animal's disoriented state. At first, nothing happened. The bison remained frozen. Then, one by one, the massive animals began to blink, to shift their weight, as if waking from a long, deep sleep. In the center of the herd, Tom could see through his drone's camera that the meteorite's strange glow was weakening as Dr. Bennett's disruption field grew stronger. Then the spell broke. A few bison on the outer edge of the circle turned and began to slowly, sluggishly walk away from the site. Then, like a great, slow ripple spreading through a pond, the entire herd began to move. The silent statue came to life. They were confused at first, but soon they were back to their normal pace, wandering away from the valley as if nothing had happened, their ancient instincts finally rebooted and back in control. As the sun began to set, Lisa stood beside Tom, watching the great herd disappear over the ridge. "Your drone saved lives today," she said quietly, "not just the bison, but the people who could have been caught in a disaster." Later that night, Tom reviewed his footage. He watched the strange stillness of the herd and the tense, collaborative effort of the team that had saved them. The footage made him realize something profound. For the first time in a long time, he hadn't just been a passive observer of nature, he had been an active part of it, a protector. The next morning, Lisa visited him at his cabin. She told him that Yellowstone could always use more eyes in the sky, more people who looked closely enough to see when the rhythm of nature was broken. Tom hesitated for only a moment before agreeing. For the first time since his wife had passed, he felt like he had found a new reason to be here, a new purpose. The world was full of mysteries that no one would ever believe unless someone had the eye to see them and the courage to show them.